with no other purpose than like, oh, here's some tits now, enjoy the show. Like it gets really boring. But
Hello and welcome to the Quackast. This is Quackast number 395. I'm Ozone Ocean. This is the Drunk Duck Quackast about marvelous Drunk Duck and comics and pop culture and all that kind of stuff. And with me, as always, are the marvelous gang of people known as Baines. Hi, Baines.
Hello.
Pitsy.
hello.
Pit's face. And Tance Irene. Hi, Tance. How you going?
Hi.
Oh my goodness! All four of us together, the fantastic team. So this week, I thought we'd chat about fighting ladies in comics and pop culture. Fighting some of our famous.
He means like warrior ladies and like badass ladies, not like go and like smacking up some random chick on the street.
Yeah, Oz doesn't do that anymore.
I just like to fight ladies. I'm a little guy. Come on.
Half the time they think you are one.
Let's get in a bitch fight. All right. But before we get into that, we got to bring up the featured comic, and the featured comic this week was Glass Rafters. So I'm going to talk about Glass Rafters now. Hello, I'm Ozone Ocean, and my feature for the week was Glass Rafters. This autobiographical blog comic is as sharp as a knife and cuts like a rusty razor. The art is beautifully honed, crisp and clean, as are the observations. Sweet art and salty writing. Glass Rafters is often dark, a little ironic, a touch satirical, and brutally honest, in a very good way. It's basically an illustrated blog, so there's lots of reading to do, but it's worth it. Dode's life experiences are particularly unique and don't quite fit into any of the boxes the internet culture wars love to assign people to. So don't try, just read and enjoy Glass Rafters. The art is bright, coloured, digital, and the writing style is observational autobiography. There's a few pages here, about 30 or so, and it's still going on, so it's something to get into and read and start enjoying the autobiographical, semi-autobiographical, I'm not sure, Glass Rafters. Well, autobiographical and observation sort of thing. It's quite fun. It's quite dark in places too, but even so, the art is compelling. So it's a really worthwhile read, especially because the observations really make you think, as well as often entertaining you as well. So, yes. Enjoy Glass Rafters by Dode, rated E. Have you guys actually read Glass Rafters?
I just started the other day, or last night actually. Did an extra shift at work, so I had a little time to myself while I was there. And it's like, oh, check out this glass rafters, Rasclafters. It was really interesting. It's autobiographical.
Yeah.
It's really text heavy, but it's very readable.
Yeah.
I really was taken in by it. I've only read a few pages so far, but I really like it.
It's an interesting comic because the guy talks about, or the guy or the girl, I'm not sure of the gender of the artist, but the person talks about being regarded as mentally handicapped or something like that. But the writing is very on point. I mean, the writing is very intellectual, very clever. So I don't know where this idea that they are intellectually handicapped comes about. So maybe it's a stigma.
It's a lot of childhood stuff, some abuse issues, and some stuff like that. From what I can tell so far, I'm reading it backwards. Because I often read webcomics that way. Because you start on the most recent, then I'm just clicking back one page at a time. Yeah. Maybe I shouldn't do that. But yeah, there's childhood, kind of a tough childhood in ways.
Exactly. Yeah. It's.
But the way it's written is not in a corny, like eye-rolling way. It's really good.
Very acerbic tone. Extremely acerbic.
Yeah.
It's
well
like,
written.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you want to sympathize with me? Well, f you.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful. All right, that's the featured comic, and now we have the featured music. The featured music this week from Gun Wallace is Dolphin Brothers or Dolphin Bros, who are a terrible late '80s band, but no, this is Dolphin Bros. So jump up and down to this mad dolphin party scene. It's all over the place, but all it wants you to do is move. So take it away, Gun Wallace, with Dolphin Bros. And that was the music. Thank you very much for that, Gun Wallace. Of course, the comic is by CJoe1377, and it's rated E. Dolphin Bros, or Dolphin Brothers. Okay. Fighting ladies, or warrior ladies. So I think probably Wonder Woman was the first one in comics. Maybe not. The first famous one in comics, anyway, that we all know. What do you guys think? What are your favorite fighting ladies in pop culture or comics? We'll start with comics because we're a comic website. I think my favorite one, the best one I've ever seen, is probably Pinky.
Oh yeah, do you read that comic?
No, I've heard about it. You know, I've heard the
me
buzz,
too.
and apparently it's meant to be really good. I think people should check it out. I will check it out one day. They should make a movie out of it, really.
Heard the legends.
Yeah, one of the big ones. But yeah, that's sort of. I mean, first we had Wonder Woman, and we have Pinky's Alpha and Omega, and in this
That's
case,
right.
the Omega is sort of better. It's how things go. You know?
Well, let me see. Wasn't there a jungle princess or a jungle warrior woman?
Oh yeah,
way back in the day. There's
Um,
probably been several versions of that, I guess.
let's see. There was a movie that was made out of that. It's not like
Yeah.
She-Ra. Obviously, She-Ra is another good.
She-Ra
fighting
is a
lady.
version of that. Yeah. Probably.
Yeah. She's fantastic. Yeah, I know what you mean. So there was a famous one, yeah, sort of Burroughsian kind of character.
Jill of the Jungle or something. I don't know. I remember I saw it on the Robert Crumb documentary. You know that movie Crumb? He talks about his early comics. And it was like this. It was that series, whatever it was, Jill of the Jungle, or I don't know what it was called, or whatever it
Jill
was.
of the Jungle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like She-Hulk a lot.
What's that?
I liked She-Hulk a lot. Sorry, I'm
She-Hulk?
jumping all over.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, yeah, She-Hulk. Oh, fantastic artwork. I
Yeah.
love She-Hulk. She's a
funny. Yeah, good
really
character.
good evolution of that character, rather than just a gender swap, which is what we're getting a lot these days. You know, we reckon we're being so progressive with the fighting women, but a lot of the time it's just gender swaps.
Yeah, she might have started that way, kind of. I don't remember the early issues really well, although I've read them. But she definitely evolved into a really different kind of character than the Hulk.
Yeah, she became very much her own thing, and she is just a completely different thing from the Hulk. I mean, she has green skin and everything like that, but she is very much her own thing. Supergirl, I think, started out as just that kind of thing, but became her own, totally her own thing in many ways. Not that I really could say much about that. I've only seen like the movie from the 80s.
Right. I haven't even seen that.
Oh god. Of course, we have characters like Batwoman again. That would be I think she started out as a subsidiary sort of like sidekick character to Batman, and then became her own series.
Right.
So, all right. But what are your guys' favorites of fighting ladies? When did you sort of first latch onto?
Well, no, we all love Ginny from Friday the 13th Part 2, right, Pitt?
She's all right.
Pitt is annoyed by her a little bit, I think. Actually. That was probably an early fighting lady I saw. Oh, and Ripley, of course.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Ripley.
Yeah, everyone always, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you get the Survivor chicks from the slasher movies and stuff. Probably not the first thing to come to mind, but they're interesting in that their way of fighting usually is more kind of like surviving until you can reach the point where you can fight back, which is interesting, I think. But
yeah, they're kind of like just normal people.
Yeah, they didn't really give them a badass kind of vibe, did they? They're more a realistic kind of fighting person.
Yeah.
I
get bored by badass easily, though. I mean, like, not if it's done right. Like, there are some badass characters that I truly love, but I get annoyed by it really easily. So when people start talking about like badass fighting ladies and stuff, I don't know. I don't get all that interested. Because it just sounds kind of gimmicky. Not to say that it is, but a lot of times people just kind of flatten it to like, this is a woman who can kick a guy's face, and that's what she is. So there, she's interesting.
Yeah, I come across it more from the point of view of we have badass men. It's good to see some badass ladies, and not like they can kick a guy's face. It's just that they are action heroes.
But yeah, of course. But I mean, what I'm saying is that. Am I? Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
But what I'm saying is, yeah, okay, it's nice to see that, but it's got to be more than that. Just like, oh, there's badass men, there should be badass women. That gets. Like, after you see it for the first couple times, if it's not more than just, like, like the chick from Underworld kind of gets under my skin a bit. But that's had way too many incarnations as a movie anyway. But, like, it's just... I'm not going to be very composed with this. I didn't know what we were talking about today. But, yeah, it can be a gimmick sometimes. But when it's done well, it's nice. And it just kind of falls into, just make good characterization like anything else, at least make it interesting. If it is going to be like a flat kind of like badass character, like at least make like the action interesting then, or like make it cool. You know what I mean? Like,
well, that brings up a good point. Initially, it was very exploitative when we had the origin of the badass ladies. Of course, Wonder Woman was very much designed to be sort of a bondagey kind of character. Other characters, like, say, you can really bring up like Lady Death, which is hugely exploitative, but has a huge fan base anyway. Octobriana, which was... Have you guys ever seen Octobriana?
Mm-mm.
Oh, you really should check it out. She started out as a weird kind of... I'm not even sure of the origin. There's a lot of mythology surrounding it. But apparently she was meant to be like a Soviet Wonder Woman sort of character invented in the Soviet bloc. Or some people say like this was like an art project and it was never really invented in the Soviet bloc. It was just sort of like, what if? Maybe this character, what if a character was invented in the Soviet bloc to be a Wonder Woman character, and fighting for the proletariat and everything, what would she have looked like? And there were all these people who were really fans of it, like Billy Idol and people like that. They wanted to make a movie of Octobriana as this alternative, artsy, badass sort of character, you know, fighting for the people and the communist world. So that was pretty awesome, kind of very original and interesting character, and called Octobriana, of course. That gives her it's a bizarre name.
It is. You do tend to remember it a bit. Oh, well, it does sound interesting. I mean, I wouldn't mind checking it out.
Yeah, you should if you can ever find it. The art is amazing. She has very African sort of features, but this huge bouffant head of blonde hair, like Pinky's giant mane, except it's blonde and often dreadlocky and all this kind of thing, and a Soviet star on a little headband. So she's a very cool character, and her superpower is carrying an AK-47, I think. And running around in a bikini, as you do. So yeah, she's a pretty iconic, funky character, but I think her origins are sort of mostly mythical. I don't know much about what's true and what's not with Octobriana, but yeah, she's worth checking out. So she's pretty groovy. What other ones that are pretty standout and funky? Apart from Pinky, there's really not.
But what about Aeon Flux? You love Aeon Flux. I mean,
Aeon Flux. Yeah, she was. Her earliest incarnation is what I like the most. When she started out, yeah, on Liquid TV, I think it was called, wasn't it?
Yeah, she had those little shorts, like not like shorts, but you know, like animated shorts.
She was wearing much shorter, briefer stuff than short shorts. Yeah, Aeon Flux was so clever. Who was like, it was Victor Chang or something like that, the guy's name. I can't remember who created it.
Yeah.
It was so clever. The idea was she would come up with devious, clever plans to kill this guy. Super clever plans. And it would always be foiled by something incredibly simple and stupid and mundane. Like, at the very end, she'd slip on a banana peel and die, and all her clever schemes and plans and assassination attempts would be thwarted by this stupid
banana peel or attack or something. Or
exactly. She'd be swinging around from bar to bar, you know, slowly getting close to this guy, and then she'd just miss the handhold at the last second and fall to her death, and that would be the end of the whole thing. So that really subverted that whole trope of someone being an ultimately a competent, clever assassin. She was super clever, but everything would be undone just by this little moment, which was so great. And she was dressed incredibly sexily and but the thing was, it was so sexy it was almost gross, weirdly, because it was just so tight and so brief what she was wearing.
Well, and her anatomy as well, like the anatomy of those characters is very stylized and very skewed, where like you can see like, you know, the ribs and like all the like, you know, they all look like old truck stop ladies who've been smoking for like 50 years, you know, and stuff. And yeah, it's kind of,
very thin. Exactly. Thin and bony. Like what I've drawn in the latest Bottomless Waitress panel for Melody and Harmony, with the characters Baines came.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, they're sort of very much like that. Prominent pelvic bones. That's something you'll remember from Aeon Flux.
Very
prominent.
Definitely.
And so, yeah, in that way, she sort of subverted that sexy trait as well that these characters have, being, you know, very briefly dressed. So she's very briefly dressed, but her body is very briefly dressed with fat and muscle as well. So it's if you want to see something, like that, he takes it to the absolute limit, so it becomes unsexy, which was clever. I like the character. And she was also in the longer series for Aeon Flux as well, which was totally went in a different direction. in that it was more about the repetitiveness of everything. So in the TV series, it was like super clever plans to kill the guy, and it would fail at the last second. And the TV series was like in the way that, okay, we're going to turn this into a narrative. So it's not just that her plans fail, it's that her reality fails and everyone's a clone. And the thing is, she keeps on trying to kill this guy because it's an eternal struggle, and she's always been trying to kill him through all these multiple realities. And blah, oh my god, that it just became just a bit silly. It held on to a shred of cleverness, but it just went too far. And then it went even worse in the movie with Charlize Theron, I think, played Eon.
Mm-hmm. Your favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she's not bad, Charlize Theron. I don't like Scarlett Johansson.
Oh yeah, no, it's Scarlett. Yeah, you don't like her. Never mind.
Yeah, I get them confused as well. Don't worry, all the time. But yeah, I think Scarlett has replaced Charlize as the default woman who they pick for superhero movies. So
yes,
she gets all of it. It's same thing happens to the male actors as well. We get like same guys playing superheroes in every bloody thing, no matter what.
Henry Cavill, however he's called.
Yeah, Fassbender, the Cabbage Patch guy.
But speaking of the Warrior Ladies, I'm impressed, unless I didn't catch it, which is very possible, but you haven't mentioned Furiosa yet.
Furiosa. Oh, right. Yeah, Furiosa is a really late stage badass lady, isn't she? And she's fantastic.
She's my favorite from like mainstream movies or something.
Yeah, I love her. She stole the show, really. The Mad Max Fury Road, she became the new icon.
Mm-hmm.
That's who you want to see. You know, you don't even want to see like Mad Max 4 or whatever. It'd be Furiosa.
Well, the movie was primarily about her, and Max is a character. He's almost like a Judge Dredd character. Like comic wise, where there's a story happening, and then the character, Max isn't the center of the story.
Yeah.
It's about Furiosa, and so you kind of come away with that. So I'd be curious if the next movies kind of stay with that, where you focus on another character or something else that's happening outside of Max, because the other ones were kind of like that actually as well. He finds a place, where there's things going on. There's a problem between two different parties, and he kind of gets sucked up into it. So that's always kind of Max. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. That's a digression. But in this case, it works very well because we become very interested in Furiosa. And part of that interest, I think, does come in that she's a woman character who is being written at a time when tropes are being subverted about women, but she's also just very interesting to watch as a character.
Yeah, she
it
is.
works.
Without focusing on the exploitative sort of aspects either. So she's not just, a cleavage and toughness, that we move beyond that, and we can have her as this powerful person without focusing on the sexuality so much, which is another interesting evolution of the whole thing. She's even got a robot arm or something, hasn't she? Like a claw or something?
She's an amputee, actually, which is something you very rarely see in lead characters, in the sense that they are main and they have a ton of screen time and that sort of thing. And that she carries it so well, and she gives this feeling of power, despite the fact that, or perhaps even because she has this mechanical arm. and everything. I think that is very, very well done and well written. Really, she's a well written character, and the fact that she's female is just an element of her personality. Not no, that's very wrong. It's an element that supports her personality. That's what I wanted to say. Without it being the focus, like, oh, look, a woman.
Yeah, see, I hate it when that kind of thing happens. Like, for instance, there was an anime series I could have gotten interested in, and anime, like, I'm not somebody who gets super offended when women are, like, you know, come off as, like, really sexy and something, you know, whatever. But it gets really old, especially when it's done with no other purpose than, like, oh, here's some tits, now enjoy the show, you know, like, it gets really boring. But like, I watched this one anime series. It was Fate Stay Night, and I got so angry because that typing is really loud. That's okay. It might just be because I had my headphones turned up. But anyway, and I just got so annoyed with it because they had this really badass, like, swords woman female character who was fun to watch. It's cool to watch her fight and stuff. And I don't know, she was just really cool. But then they have to go and do the stupid tropey shit, like, ooh, like she was taking a shower and the guy walked in on her, like, just all this stupid shit. Like,
it undermines the character, doesn't it? It undermines it. So you've built up this expectation, or just her strength or whatever, and whatever, and then you say, go on.
Sorry, because even though, like, they try to play it off like, oh, like she doesn't care, you know, it's not that sexy. But the show frames it as if it is still sexy.
And it's meant to be. And you know why they're showing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just dumb. Well, you know what I mean? Like, just let me enjoy it.
Yeah. Let you have a character you can actually have as an avatar, as a.
It doesn't even have to be an avatar.
As a relatable character that you like, rather than undermining them and turning them into something shit.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to go back to the thing you mentioned about, so Furiosa becomes like, we focus on her, but it's Mad Max's world. That is how one of the earliest characters in, like, the pulp world happened with, Valeria, who was a character who came in...
Mad Max.
No.
Oh, no. That was Conan.
Conan. So she was in the movie in Conan the Barbarian, who people would recognize, but she originally came out of a story by Robert E. Howard. So that was written in the mid-1930s. And this was a real change of pace from his normal Conan the Barbarian story. So, Conan stories, they weren't called Conan the Barbarian. So they usually focus on just... Conan would have a short adventure, Conan wins through feats of strength against, everything, and that's it. And there's one story called Red Nails, where we have Valeria, and the story totally focuses on her, and Conan is a secondary character. We hardly have any focus on Conan at all, so it's very much like the whole Mad Max thing. It's a story about Valeria, really, and not Conan at all. And she is, for most of this, for about 85% of the story, she is portrayed as being just not an exploitative character at all. There's no exploitation or anything. She's just a straight out kind of heroic, kind of badass character, and that's really interesting. Towards the end, it sort of gets a bit weird, but most of the story, she's a badass character. So that was an interesting thing. But yeah, people will know her from the movies, and the movie is, of course, She's a bit of a she's joining together two characters from the Conan stories, Belit, which was a pirate Jewess from the Conan stories, and Valeria. I think she's called Valeria in the stories. But yeah, so Valeria in the movie is, again, quite a good character. She's not done in an exploitative way. Pretty much, they don't really show that. There's only one shot of her at the very end when she saves Conan as a ghost, and she's dressed like a Valkyrie in her like a scale mail bikini, and says, "Do you want to live forever?" And that's such a cool scene. But,
awesome.
Yeah, most of that, she's a really cool character and has a really cool death too, which is a really heroic kind of death. And she's not like, the whole riding into the sunset kind of thing. It's a more operatic kind of showing of that character.
Mm.
She's really cool. Have you guys seen that?
No.
Oh, you should
No.
watch Conan the Barbarian.
No.
What's that?
Oh, Conan,
I
yeah.
will now.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
I said that I will
will
see.
Oh,
now.
that you will see now. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, it's an interesting film. It's very Nietzschean. It's an interesting interpretation of the whole Conan world. So it mainly focuses on Conan, of course, but he has these excellent other characters, Valeria and Subutai, which is his sort of Mongolian Genghis Khan kind of sidekick. So yeah, Valeria is a fantastic character, played by some lady who was a great dancer. I can't remember. She didn't do many other films. And that reminds me, Grace Jones, who was dressed in this ridiculous outfit for Conan the Destroyer, but was such a badass, and she was such a fun character in that film. Come on, you guys have to have seen that. Grace Jones.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
She's magnificent. And initially you'd think, oh my god, that's such an exploitative character because of the way she's dressed, but she doesn't come across as being, like, just there for being sexy at all. She's just tough. In my opinion, anyway. But yeah, you have to acknowledge the fact that, yeah, she was dressed in this ridiculous kind of sexy fashion. And yeah,
And the extreme version of like sort of just the butt kicking female. I liked it though.
yeah. She was
I
pretty
remember it
good.
vaguely, but yeah, she's like very memorable. Obviously, she's so like distinctive looking.
Oh yeah. For the early 80s, that was pretty good. And she was in a few films as playing sort of a badass character. She was, I think, in a James Bond film.
Oh, James Bond. Okay.
Yeah, as a sniper or something, I think.
Oh, okay. I didn't see it.
View to a Kill, I think.
Oh,
With
maybe I did see it.
yeah, I think that was a film with Roger Moore, and the bad guy was played by that guy who talks really funny and slow. He was in that sketch in Saturday Night Live about more cowbell.
Oh, okay.
I can
Christopher Walken.
That's it.
Yeah.
Christopher Walken, I think. Maybe my memory's playing tricks on me. But yeah, Grace Jones was definitely in that
It
movie.
might have been. Yeah.
Duran Duran did the theme song.
Fighting ladies.
Yes,
I can't do it.
that's perfect, babe.
Ladies, fight. I think I lost it already. Yeah.
So, how have you guys been? I mean, do your characters ever turn into badasses, Baines? The fighting
Yes.
ladies?
Yes, they do.
Well, of
yeah,
course,
ladies more
Penelope
so.
is like Penny is like did wrestling and stuff like that, or fighting.
Yeah, she was an underground fighter,
Yeah.
working for the mafia before she became just a sweet lady. Well, I mean, but she is by nature very sweet, but she's unnaturally powerful. So Yeah, as always happens when you leave home too early, she was shanghaied into a life of underground fighting.
Of course. Yeah.
So that's her past history, yeah. And then, sort of pulled back into it for one story. But yeah, she's tough. She can fight. The other ladies are pretty tough in attitude, and I think it's more talked about than actually seen so far. But yeah, they're kind of butt kicking. I like that.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Abigail.
And I haven't asked. Yeah, Abigail is tough. Harley's, I think, pretty tough. I had a female assassin who's like very tough. So I guess I do. I definitely I like that type. Yeah. And obviously, I'm not the only one. These types of characters are all over in fiction.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, they are. But it hasn't always been that popular, though. Or it has been, if you had a fighting lady, she was limited to a certain role. Like there was a character in a recent version of, I think, the Solid Snake computer games or Metal Gear or whatever. Yeah, Metal Gear, that's what they're called. So you have the fighting lady, and of course she's a sniper, which was like a standard thing for a lot of fighting ladies to be in comics and movies. They'll have this kind of support role in some kind of way. So she's a sniper and she's dressed like a stripper. And there you go. That's your fighting lady. So she's going to be that. It's just, limited to that.
But that was kind of, what was her name in the Venture Brothers?
Oh yeah,
Local Cocktease, and that was kind of like her whole palette. But they did really fun stuff with that, though.
I definitely, my Russian assassin character is definitely from that type. I mean, of course, the Baroness in G.I. Joe came first, and that character is kind of, or the Rocky and Bullwinkle character, maybe that spy character, like sort of that definitely is a character type.
The vamp Russian spy, yeah, that's a trope.
Yeah, absolutely, and just taken to its extreme in Venture Brothers. Yeah, that's a great character.
Venture Brothers did subvert that in an interesting way, in that Venture Brothers has its G.I. Joe analog there. I can't even remember what they're called. And they used to be always fighting the Cobra kind of clones as well. And the baddie there was like a Baroness kind of character, but one of the kids, Rusty, I think, not Rusty. Rusty's the dad, but one of the kids gets finds her battle suit, her fighting suit, and he gets into it, and he can't get it off, but it gives him these amazing powers to be like a kick-ass fighter. But it has the big hips, the hourglass figure, and the boobs and everything like that.
Okay, I haven't seen that one.
So he's doing all this fighting, and he's got the helmet on, and he basically looks like, a woman doing all this incredible fighting. And he never wants to take the suit off either, because it allows him to be a superhero. Yeah. And he absolutely doesn't care that it makes him look like a woman. So that was a pretty interesting interpretation of the whole thing. Yeah, so I like that. That was well done.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the suit gets
that's clever.
Thrown into like a huge turbine on a flying aircraft carrier or something in the end. So that was the end of that.
Oh.
Yeah. But yeah. So, all right. What about you guys? I keep saying that. Come on.
I remember when Fry in Futurama was like in a fight. There was a fighter, like an army, and he was like drafted into the army, and he's in like sort of an X-wing type starship, and he was very excited because he's like, I'll be a real hero like Captain Janeway or Xena. Well, that just came to mind. But your story reminded me of that.
Oh, Xena. Jeez.
Well, Xena, Warrior Princess, your Red Sonja type character.
Yeah.
Barbarian lady.
Can't forget, Xena, who became, she started out as a spin-off from Hercules. And she was just a spin-off character or whatever, but she became bigger than Hercules ever was. and she just became massive and a whole phenomena in her own right. And again, she wasn't an exploitative character, really. She was just her own thing. But I suppose the only unfortunate thing is that, like a lot of female characters, she did start out as just the female version of a male thing. And, you know, so... And she came later and all that kind of stuff. She didn't, like... Here we are, this is the female, you know, whatever. It was like, yeah, this is the female version. So, yeah, that's...
Female lady version.
That's not always the strongest way to go.
How about Buffy? Did we talk about Buffy already? I was cut off there for a while.
Oh, Buffy, yeah.
Sort
Another
modern
1990s
kind of
character.
example.
So she started out as, in a film, as this cheerleader, ditzy traditional cheerleader. And the film was quite funny. I liked it. It had the Paul Rubens in it, Pee Wee Herman character.
Right, yeah.
It's good. And then...
One of the great death scenes in all of... That's not what this Quackast is about, though. But Paul Rubens' death scene in that movie was pretty amazing.
Oh, that was hilarious.
Yeah. Very
And
drawn
then
out.
it becomes a TV series, and the character gets completely changed, and she sort of loses all that ditziness and becomes like this very sensible, head screwed on straight, kind of amazing character, played by Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yeah.
It was a
lot of people really love that character and sort of point to that as a great version of a female hero, like a fighting type hero.
Yeah, a real icon of the 90s.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. And it was well done. I liked the movie. So the TV series was a bit irritating to me because it was very, took itself very seriously.
Yeah, it's very different. Yeah.
In the beginning. And it was, edgy and emo and stuff like that. But it did turn into something that was a lot funnier and clever as it went on. And it became a lot more, it just became a lot more fun and enjoyable. So yeah, she's a fantastic one. Red Sonja you mentioned as well. So Red Sonja, she was her first incarnation was, of course, Robert E. Howard. And in that, she was a 16th century sort of woman dressed in piratical outfit. She was fighting the Turks or the Ottomans as they invade across Europe, and she was defending the Austro-Hungarian Empire on a frontier fort and all that kind of thing. But for the comics, she got turned into a barbarian lady, a contemporary of Conan, I think, with slightly different spelling of her name. And she's the iconic kind of chainmail bikini, I think. That's very silly chainmail bikini kind of look to her.
Did she start that or popularize that?
Yeah, I think she popularized it.
Wow.
That was a big thing.
Proud tradition.
Yeah, very proud tradition.
People like that or hate it.
Invented, I don't know if it's invented, but popularized in the 1970s, I think. From when that comic sort of started, but never like that in the Robert E. Howard stories at all. She was very completely not exploitative at all. So the comics sort of in a way they go backwards and cater to that 1970s taste. In the stories from the 1930s, she was just a kick-ass 16th century or 15th century fighter against the Ottomans, with guns and things like this. It's a very different kind of story. Jirel of Jiroi, have any of you guys ever read that one?
No.
Now this is another red-haired badass kind of character. So this woman starts out as like some a princess, or in a very bad kind of situation. Her father wants her to marry some awful person, and she finds a secret way into this like a alternative world, like a fairy world or something like that. She has to fight her way out of it, and she becomes this sort of knight heroine. And it's written by C.L. Moore, which is She was like an early pulp writer. So if you ever get a chance to read it, I recommend it. So this was a lady who was writing before Robert E. Howard in the 1920s. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, this is a very, very early badass kind of lady character. Written by a lady. So, a very different sort of thing. A lady.
Ladies by ladies. Hey. And what was it called? Jarell?
Jarell of Giroy.
Oh, boy.
Or
There are lots of words I don't know how to spell in that, but I'll look for it.
pronounce it in the Spanish way, and it would be Hirel of Hiroy. I even did a fan art picture of that years and years ago. I should have that as my cover page, as the cover for the Quackast. There's been talks to turn her into a movie, but no one ever has, unfortunately. So she would make a good movie character.
Okay, I found it. Jarell of Jiroy. Jirel of Joyry.
You did? Oh my goodness.
Did. Weird Tales.
Yeah. When was it written?
All the stories published during the 1930s.
Okay, in the 30s.
Yeah. A collection of 5 stories originally.
Yeah, I have them collected in a novel.
Oh, okay, yeah.
My drawing of her is the best. Ignore all the horrible artwork on
So that's going to be image for the Quackast? Cool. Ignore the rest.
Maybe. My crappy pencil drawing that I did years and years ago. It's funny. So Jirel of Giroy, she was this great character, but most of the artwork of her shows her in like metal bikinis and all this kind of stuff. So that's right. Going to happen to her. No matter how kick-ass your character is, that's what she'll turn into. Oh, jeez. That's hilarious. But yeah, she was much more than that.
Wow. Yeah, cool.
So that's one of my favorite ones. Like in comics, what have we got? We got Wonder Woman, Batwoman, or Batgirl, I think. I'm not sure. I can't remember. I've never read any.
What about on Drunk Duck? Like we have, for instance,
Pinky TA, of course.
Oh, what's the one comic besides Pinky TA? About the mafia, and there's that one.
Oh, yeah, man.
King's
Club, yeah.
King's Club, yeah. I mean, that's a great female badass character in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
God, there's probably a plethora on Drunk Duck.
The God Strain and God Strands.
Kim
Neptunian has a cool female badass character. Like
a couple of them.
Trans-Neptunian, yeah.
Which is interesting as a porn comic, because it's you would think them to be naturally exploited, and they kind of are, but I still find that I respect the main character a lot. Like I like her, she's cool. And it's never against her will. Not that defines a good or bad character, but it's just kind of, I don't know, it's refreshing to see, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting kind of character design as well. I don't read the comic, but I've had a look at some of the artwork, and he really exaggerates interesting physical attributes of the character, so to speak.
You have Martha as well from Without Moonlight, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, she doesn't really punch as much, but she has a body count. That's true.
She's a sniper lady.
And the thing is, all of these characters are distinctive from one another. Like I was saying before, they're not just simply badass ladies, and that's their one thing. They're all interesting. They're all distinctive. You're not going to mix them up.
No,
even
they're not a standard trope or just a female version of a man. They are characters in their own right. You are right in that.
I'm a female version of a man. That wasn't funny. I don't know why I said it. I'm unpaid.
What about
I liked it. It was funny. I enjoyed that.
Gretchen? She doesn't do much badass stuff, but she's just badass. You look at her on like the page, and she's just, you respect her immediately.
Yeah.
I don't know if she doesn't do much. I mean, she has no problem becoming physical when she's defending something or trying to get something or things like that. She has, for the screen time, quote unquote, that she is very memorable. Like she has marked the scene that she's in. It's Gretchen always.
She has no problem getting physical against Bones when he kind of oversteps his boundaries a bit later on, and I think that's kind of what defines her. What starts to define her. Like the first time we meet her, she's just kind of a sex toy, and I think that's what she's supposed to be. She's the sexy queen. She kind of gets Bones in trouble. But later on, when he meets her after, she's been dethroned and everything, as soon as he makes a move on her, she turns around, and hits him in the nuts or something. And, so I think that's when people kind of started to realize, like, she's a little bit different than she used to be. But, yeah, she's all right. She's all right.
She's a well done version of, not version. That's terrible. I'm being regressive. She is a well done character.
Thank you.
In her own right. Hit Girls. All the comics by
man, awesome.
By Monique McNaughton, Koi Dog, feature great female fighting characters. In no matter what, UNA Frontiers, Arrow Flight, so a female fighter pilot in that comic.
Oh, I haven't checked that one out.
That's an old comic. I love her style too, because she draws in this very retro kind of 1960s kind of comic style, which is such a interesting look. Yeah. So those are some cool characters. So we should finish up now because we've got a quick Quackast this week, unfortunately. So thank you so much, guys, for being on the Quackast, the Fighting Girls.
Yes, and thank you for being a friend.
Thank you for being a friend. All right, bye everyone. This has been a quick cast. A quick cast.
Let's go slay some monsters. Bye.